Thank you, Janice. Good afternoon, conference. And can I start in moving the annual report? On behalf of the National Executive Committee, extend our warm thanks to all the staff of the union who worked so diligently all year to serve the representatives and members of PCS, to thank all those politicians who have supported us in Parliament, and to thank all those visitors and guests to our annual conference. But I also want to start conference by thanking yourselves. Just have a look around the room. If you have a look around the room, you will not see an empty seat. Every seat filled with a PCS delegate, our gallery virtually full of trainee delegates and people who've come to observe the conference. Now, why is that something to be proud of? We should be proud of it because nearly everyone here has had to take their own time to come and stand up and represent the members back in the workplaces. That is a fantastic tribute to you. It is a real sign of your commitment to this union and to your members. But it is also a disgrace. It is a disgrace that you have to come here on your own time. Because if our employers really valued the role of the trade unions, really understood that you stand up for your members, they would not make you take annual leave. They would give you the facility time that you need, not just to be here, but to represent people in the workplace. So in thanking everybody for showing such commitment in being here, let us once again repeat the call that if hopefully we get Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister of this country, we hope that one of the first things he does is to reinstate facility time across the civil service, recognise the vital role of you as union representatives, reinstate national collective bargaining to really show that a government understands that trade unions are the lifeblood of this country and the civil service should lead by example. So well done to all of you, and let's hope that we get a Prime Minister soon who will recognise your importance. The conference, I want to also thank, I know many others have already done and will do this week, Janice. Janice, as we have heard, has been elected for 17 consecutive years. Now, there are not many people who can match a record of 17 consecutive annual elections. She is without doubt one of the UK's leading trade union women and has led this union brilliantly. And we should never forget that it was Janice, along with me in 2001, that stood on the steps of the High Court, having both of us had to offer up our own personal houses as security to get into the court to challenge the then vicious right-wing leadership of this union to defend the democracy of PCS. Who would have thought that all those years on, Janice would still be winning an election, and we now had a union that stood in the finest democratic traditions, one that we should be proud of, and largely, Janice, due to the steady leadership that you have shown right back since 2001. Well done, and let's show Janice our appreciation conference. I want to say that Janice is one of a growing number of outstanding socialist women who hold leading positions in this union, not just on the National Executive Committee, but in the majority of groups of this union. And I think that's a real credit to us, showing that we value diversity, and we believe in a union with a majority of women members, we should have women in the leadership of this union, which is why conference, the NEC hopes that in the debate this week, you will agree that we should consult widely about changing the rules to ensure that we have 50% guaranteed representation of women on the National Executive. We also hope that you will follow our lead in terms of our commitment to equality by voting for the rule changes that guarantee reserved seats for members not just from the black and minority ethnic community, but also now for young members, disabled members, and for our LGBT plus comrades. All of this a sign of our growing commitment to the diversity and commitment to equality in this union that we want to see right throughout, from top to bottom. And in terms of showing that our women in this union stand out in the British Labour movement, let me also pay tribute to our own National Officer for Scotland, Lynn Henderson, who has now been elected to be President of the Scottish TUC. And without anticipating too much the democracy of the TUC, can I say that tomorrow we are expecting that Shavana Taj, our National Officer for Wales and the South West, will be elected as the TUC President for Wales. And if the TUC rules of democracy carry on to September, democracy based on if you hang around long enough it comes your way, I will become the UK National TUC President from September. Now just imagine that for a minute. A union PCS that the government thought they could blow out of the water will hold the presidencies of every national TUC in the UK, in Scotland, in Wales and throughout the UK. I think that is a tribute to this union and to you as activists, and we should be proud of it. And as part of this union being on the map, I just want to share with you of the many messages of support, 3 messages of support that I've received personally this morning to pass on to conference. First of all, from Steve Gillen, the General Secretary of the POA. He's in the gallery. He's wished us well for this conference, and Steve wanted me to pass on that in the event we vote later on to ballot for industrial action on pay, the POA are also considering balloting up to 4,000 of their members in the prison service, and we would hope that any industrial action that may follow we could take jointly with our colleagues in prisons, and that would be a real stand-up for joint union action in the civil service. So thank you, Steve, and please pass on our solidarity to all your members in the POA. I also wanted to share with you a solidarity message we've had from Ronnie Draper, General Secretary of the Bakers, Food and Allied Workers Unions, one of those unions who work closely with PCS. Ronnie has wished us a successful conference. He's currently addressing the Train Drivers Union ASLEF, where he intends to stand up and tell them about the role you play in defending public services. But I draw your message of support from him to your attention for this reason. The Bakers Union have led one of the outstandingly brave industrial struggles in this country in recent years, and let's show our appreciation for those brave women and men at McDonald's, members of the BFWU who are striking for £10 an hour and union recognition. Conference on the theme of messages support and our union standing shoulder to shoulder with others in struggle. I've also had Len McCluskey, the General Secretary of Unite, on the phone this morning, wanting to wish this conference well, wanting to promise the full solidarity of Unite in the event that we move to take industrial action on the question of public sector pay. And Len also wanted me to thank you for all the messages of support and solidarity that you have sent to the various disputes in Unite, but particularly recently those brave strikers at TGI Fridays who are striking to say hands off our tips and treat us properly. Let's show our solidarity with those brave strikers. Our conference up above, I think it's there, yes it is the new slogan that we're currently working to for this union, which is called Building, Growing and Winning. And I want to say what building, growing, winning means and why the NEC hope we embrace it at all levels. Let us remind ourselves that only a few short years ago, the government tried to remove us from the trade union map. Their decision to remove Chekhov was a blatant attempt to bankrupt this union, and combined with unprecedented cuts in civil service numbers, they hoped that PCS would disappear. Far from disappearing, we see today that we are here, strong and as vibrant as ever. We have stopped the reduction in our membership, and I can tell you that last month we came within a whisker of breaking even in terms of the amount of members we are recruiting as opposed to the amount of members we are losing. That ends a period of years where this union's membership has declined because of an unprecedented onslaught on our members' jobs. 180,000 jobs cut in the civil service. Started disgracefully by Gordon Brown, then cheered by Labour MPs in Parliament. Now that Labour Party is committed to support us in growing the civil service. Those cuts were continued at a greater pace by David Cameron and now by Theresa May. And we have to say, with the smallest civil service since the Second World War, our members do an extraordinary job to try to deliver public services to the people of this country against all of the odds. But we are conference beginning to turn the tide. We're now recruiting in larger numbers than ever, and under Building, Growing and Winning, we recognise that building the union is not just about more members, it is building our infrastructure. More reps, more advocates, more diversity, more range of people being prepared to get stuck in and to join us. And if we do that, we will get more participation in this union. For this union to really succeed, we need all of our members getting involved. We hope you welcome some of the new methods of communication that we've been trialling in recent months, and I can now tell you that more members are receiving emails from the National Union and responding to those emails than ever before, and it's part of us wanting to directly involve members as well as directly involving our representatives. On conference, our 48.8% turnout in the pay consultative ballot was an extraordinary turnout that shows that our members will participate in this union, and we should encourage them to do so in ever bigger numbers. Growing, we have a target of getting to 200,000 members by 2020. Pretty soon, the National Executive will, following the line it took on direct debit, start publishing our membership figures so that we can see by group and region and branch where our members are in this union and how we can ensure that every part of the union contributes in whatever way it can to reaching our target of 200,000. And all of that is not just to be a bigger union, but it is to be a union that can win. And conference, it is extraordinary that we have managed to chalk up some incredibly important victories whilst the union has been under siege. But we recognise if the union grows and we get bigger and more people participate, we can win even more. But let us reflect on some of those victories. First of all, I want to pay tribute from this rostrum to a delegate who is sat over there from HMRC, who is here on behalf of his branch, HMRC Benton Parkview. Ringo Gebby, who is here with us, is representing members. But Ringo, in the last year, was sacked by the management of HMRC for undertaking trade union duties. He was dismissed and the management thought they were rid of him. But his branch stood by him, his colleagues stood by him, his group stood by him, and PCS stood by him. And today he is here as a delegate, reinstated, a fabulous victory for PCS. Goes to show that when we stand by our own, we can win, and standing up for people like Ringo is a sign to management that we will stand by our reps. And we do have people continually being victimised, and this union will always stand with them. And I also want to pay tribute to two other reps. First of all, we just saw him move a reference back, Dave Vincent. We don't often agree on many of the motions, Dave, but I just want to say on behalf of the NEC that we know this is your last conference. We know that you have stood up for members in MOJ Greater Manchester for years and years, have always been one of those who gets at the conference, never afraid to say what your members think. But we wanted to not just wish you well, as this is your last conference, but to recognise that your role in the PCS Samba Band, and for those who've never seen it, let me tell you, on every demonstration, come rain or come shine, loudly playing away, entertaining everybody, they put PCS on the map. Dave, you and your colleagues have been outstanding representatives for the union, in the workplace for yourself representing members, but for all of us with the Samba Band. Please take our best wishes, and we wish you well for all that you've done for the union. We hope you're not successful with 18, but anyway. I also want to pay tribute to a delegate also who's not with us. It's a delegate called Tony Ray. Tony Ray is from DHSS South East London, but he's not with us because he is suffering from ill health. Tony has been seriously ill and he's had many bouts of chemotherapy, and at the moment he's particularly going through a bad spell. He wanted to pass on his best wishes to conference, and I want to say that people will remember Tony. He speaks often at this conference. He's been a fabulous representative of members in the DWP in London, and particularly in South East London. And I hope conference can give a rousing reception to say, we wish you well, Tony. We hope your delegates will pass all of that on. We want to see you back at this conference next year on behalf of your members. All the very best. Now, conference, we are at a crossroads. This union has survived everything that's been thrown at us, but now this week we have the opportunity to take unique advantage of a weak, divided government, of a strong, principled opposition, and a union that can show that not only can we hope for better politicians in a government in the years to come, but where our union is going to seize the industrial opportunity that we have to stand up for our members, defeat the government on the question of public sector pay, and ensure they realise they need to start treating their own workforce, our members, with dignity and respect. Let us remember when we met here last year, Theresa May was Prime Minister with a majority Conservative government. We met with 17 days to go to that general election that removed her majority. And they are now weak and they are divided. But let us not forget, they may be weak and divided, but they are still a vicious government that always thinks of those with the most at the top of society and does not care for those at the bottom, and particularly those public sector workers that they treat with such scorn. And let us remember that they may be weak and divided, but what they are doing at the moment needs to be called out. Let us not let this conference pass without denouncing for what it is the racist policies of a government that can deport people who came to this country half a century ago, who paid taxes and have been part of our communities, now deported on the back of a policy of a hostile environment in the Home Office. A Prime Minister and Home Secretary sent vans around areas of high level of ethnic minorities telling people to go home. It is not right that our members in the Home Office, who work so hard and so diligently, have to work in an environment where they are used to implement policies that most of them despise. And when the government is found out, when it then seeks to pass the blame not for its own discriminatory policies on immigration, but to its own staff, it should make us not only sick to the pits of our stomach, it should make us angry and determined to do something about it. And on the same basis, we should say that a government who yesterday may well have made some concessions on the issue of benefit sanctions should be called out for presiding now over one of the worst social security systems in Western Europe that sees millions use food banks and has seen the press cover in recent days the tragedy of a woman dying in her own house when her benefits have been removed in Britain in 2018. When the sixth richest country in the world can deport black people who have been here 50 years, can see people starve in their own homes because they have a vicious benefit system. It is a government that deserves to not just be called out, it is a government that we should work tirelessly to ensure is removed from office as soon as possible so it can be replaced with Jeremy Corbyn, who can tackle these policies that are so hateful. In conference, remember this. It's not just the policies around immigration and benefits, it's the other stuff that they do. Let's look at their prize policy of privatisation. This is a government that gave contracts to Carillion when it knew that Carillion was in financial difficulty. It is a government that looks after its own, that awards contracts on executive boards with people earning millions of pounds, knowing that they could go bust and expecting the taxpayer to pick up the pieces. But it is a government, when it's found out, blindly tells people on the telly that people in the public sector will look after them and many of them will be brought back in-house. Well, let us now show our appreciation for those brave workers, PCS members who were Carillion employees, working in one of Britain's iconic institutions, the British Museum. They fought against privatisation years ago, they lost, they went to Carillion. Carillion goes bust, they are then employed by Prowse, Waterhouse, Cooper. These are the people who clean the museum, look after the security of the museum, and do all the things that visitors around the world take for granted. And yet when we call for them to be brought back in-house, the management of the museum will not even talk to PCS. We demand that on the back of Carillion, not just all Carillion workers, but all those workers on private companies working delivering private sector contracts should be brought back in-house where they belong on proper, decent terms and conditions with proper contracts, decent pay and secure pensions. Let's stand by our Carillion members, but all of those members across the civil service, unfortunate enough to be privatised, who deserve to be brought back in-house. Let's give our appreciation to our members of Carillion. I want to draw to a conclusion on this. All of that is pretty bleak. It's a pretty obnoxious government, stuffed full still of millionaire cabinet members who frankly are an embarrassment. Any country that has Boris Johnson as its foreign secretary should ask itself some serious questions. But of course the government's not just embarrassing, it's actually doing things against our interests. Look at what it's doing on the international stage, cozying up to Donald Trump, somebody we do not want in this country, somebody that we hope everyone here will join us to protest against, and saying a man like him should not be in this country, peddling his filth and his racism and his misogyny. We should say, Trump, you are not welcome in Britain. And we should also say this, that Theresa May, quick enough to jump on the back of the issue of anti-Semitism to have a go at Jeremy Corbyn, a man who does not have an anti-Semitic bone in his body, but she is mysteriously quiet. She is quiet when the state of Israel massacres 50 Palestinian people in Gaza in a human rights atrocity. In conference, we want a government that actually should not be an embarrassment on the international stage, but is one that seeks to use its position to try and bring peace, to try and help with conflict resolution, and not act in such a biased way. The conference, I want to say this. There has been a debate about anti-Semitism, and PCS is clear. There is no place for any anti-Semitism whatsoever in the labour and trade union movement, and where it appears, we should call it out and we should condemn it. And we should say people should very carefully choose their language when rightly standing up for the rights of Palestinians, not to stray over, intentionally or otherwise, into language that can be seen by our Jewish members as anti-Semitic. We stand with all of our Jewish members in condemning anti-Semitism. The conference, we also stand with this. We do not agree or accept, we will condemn in every way possible anti-Semitism, but let's not confuse that with the right to condemn the state of Israel, who denies Palestinians their right, and we stand absolutely for the right of the Palestinians to have their own independent, sovereign state, and the sooner that happens, the better. Conference, in conclusion, as I'm running out of time, so I can't do my lines about Cardiff getting promoted and Swansea being relegated. Another time to celebrate that. Excuse me, comrades from the DVLA, but I did want to end on this. This conference is about building, growing, winning, and seizing the moment. Seizing the moment to win in the workplace, to get better politicians, to get rid of this government, to change the public services that we work so hard to deliver so that we can be proud of the public services we deliver. But it's also a conference on the cusp of taking a very bold and important decision on the question of public sector pay. We will debate that in a minute. We will hear from John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, in a minute. But I finish asking you this. Are we going to let this week pass with Theresa May singling out our members to be treated worse now than any other members of the public sector? To allow her to break the promise she made last year when she said there was no 1% pay cap, to tell us we are still having a 1% pay cap? Are we going to let her make us the only people who have our redundancy rights cut once again because we are unfortunate enough to be direct employees of the government? Or are we going to say no? Are we going to say you ignore us at our peril? Are we going to say we're going to stand up to be counted? We are going to have a ballot. We are going to breach the 50% threshold. Are we going to force you to treat us with the dignity and respect that our members deserve? I hope we do seize that moment. I hope we seize that moment to show others in the Labour movement that we're standing up for what we believe in. And anyone who thinks that that is something that they're still worried about, think about this. Are they ignoring us? Are they hell? Yesterday, people will have seen in The Guardian coverage of our debate with us predicting that this conference would hopefully vote for a ballot on public sector pay. For action that is not protesting, but action, if we have to take it, that is meant to hurt them so they cannot ignore us. Last night, I can tell you that I received a letter from the Cabinet Office. The letter from the Cabinet Office said they urgently now want dates of PCS so we can meet them to discuss the PCS pay claim. Now that tells me something. It tells me they're not ignoring us, they are watching what we do this week. And of course we're going to meet them to discuss the pay claim. We're glad they finally acknowledge they have to meet us to talk about our pay claim nationally, which they haven't been prepared to do for years. But imagine how much better it will be when we roll up to the Cabinet Office if we're not just armed with statistics and graphs and personal testimonies telling them how terrible it is, but we are armed with a piece of paper from the Electoral Reform Society that says this: if they ignore us now, we have a legal mandate to take industrial action. I predict it will do this. It will change the nature of those talks immediately. It will force them to take it seriously, and we hope it will force them to recognise this. If our members in Scotland, working for the devolved government, can get above the rate of inflation, and well done to them for getting it, every single one of the members you represent deserves the same. They won't give it to us if we ask nicely, but maybe they will give it to us if they know we're prepared to take industrial action. Conference, seize the moment. Our members deserve it. You deserve it. Have a great conference.